Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a topic that's both fascinating and a little bit mind-boggling: the future of countries. Right now we live in a world with 193 UN-recognized countries. Think about it. Borders shift, empires rise and fall, and new nations emerge. So what factors might shape the world map in the coming centuries? Will we see more countries, fewer, or just a complete reshuffling of the geopolitical deck? Over the next few minutes, we'll explore the forces at play, from simmering border disputes to the potential for new nations to rise, and try to get a sense of what our world map might look like in the future. Let's start by acknowledging the atlas in the room. The world today, with its neatly drawn borders and distinct nation-states, is very much a product of its past. Wars, treaties, colonization, all these have left indelible marks on our maps. And while things might seem relatively stable right now, the reality is that many of these borders are still contested. The ongoing war in Ukraine, for example, is a stark reminder that even in the 21st century, territorial integrity can be challenged by force. Then there are long-standing disputes like the one between India and Pakistan over Kashmir, or the simmering tensions along the India-China border. These movements, fueled by cultural identity and political aspirations, demonstrate that the desire for separate nationhood is very much alive. Now let's imagine the future. Is it possible that new countries, ones that don't even exist on our current maps, could emerge in the coming decades? History gives us plenty of reason to believe it's possible. Throughout human history, the number of independent states has generally trended upwards. Even in recent decades, we've seen the breakup of the Soviet Union, the peaceful separation of Czechoslovakia, and the birth of South Sudan. So, where might these new countries spring up? Well, there are a number of regions around the world with active independence movements. Catalonia, as we mentioned earlier, is one prominent example. Then there's Scotland, which narrowly voted against independence in 2014, but may see the issue resurface, particularly in the context of Brexit. And let's not forget about Kurdistan, a region spanning parts of Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria, where the Kurdish people have long sought an independent homeland. Okay, so we've talked about new countries emerging, but what about the flip side? Is it possible that some countries could actually disappear from the map entirely? History provides some sobering examples. Countries, just like empires, can crumble and fade away, often absorbed by their neighbors or torn apart by internal strife. While outright conquest might seem less likely in today's world, there are other forces that could lead to the shrinking or even disappearance of nations. Take climate change, for instance. Rising sea levels pose an existential threat to low-lying island nations like the Maldives and Tuvalu. Internal divisions also have the potential to fracture existing countries. Belgium, for example, has long grappled with linguistic and cultural divisions between its Flemish and Walloon populations. The ongoing war in Ukraine has already resulted in Russia annexing Crimea, and it's impossible to say with certainty what the country's borders will look like when the conflict eventually ends. Chapter 4: Superpowers and the Shifting Sands of Power. The actions of countries like the United States, China, and Russia have a profound impact on the international order, and their decisions can make or break the aspirations of nations large and small. One interesting scenario to consider is the future of the European Union. Could this bloc of nations, already deeply integrated economically and politically, eventually evolve into a true federal superstate? On the other side of the spectrum, we've seen a resurgence of assertive nationalism in recent years, particularly from China and Russia. This resurgence of great power competition has the potential to redraw borders, either through direct annexation or by forcing smaller countries to align themselves with one bloc or another. Chapter 5. Gazing into the crystal ball: potential future borders. One region where change seems almost inevitable is the Middle East. Decades of conflict in countries like Iraq, Syria, and Yemen have left borders fragile and populations displaced. It's not inconceivable that we could see the emergence of new, smaller states in the region as different ethnic or religious groups seek to carve out their own territories. Africa, too, is a continent where borders could shift dramatically in the coming decades. Many African nations are grappling with ethnic and religious tensions, and some experts believe that these divisions could lead to further fragmentation. Even in seemingly stable regions like North America, there are undercurrents of secessionist sentiment. While it's highly unlikely in the foreseeable future, some groups in places like Texas and California have periodically flirted with the idea of independence. And then there are the wild cards, the unforeseen events that could upend the global order and redraw the map in ways we can't even imagine. Chapter 6. The World in 2100, a new geopolitical landscape. So, after this whirlwind tour of potential border changes and geopolitical upheavals, you might be wondering, just how many countries will there be in the future? Some experts believe that the number of independent states could actually increase significantly in the coming decades, perhaps even surpassing 200 or more. This would be driven by a combination of factors: ongoing secessionist movements, the potential breakup of existing countries due to internal strife, and the rise of new nations in regions like the Middle East and Africa. At the same time, we could also see a countervailing trend towards greater integration. The European Union, if it continues on its current trajectory, could become a model for other regional blocs to follow, leading to the creation of larger supranational entities. It's possible that by 2100, the world map will be a patchwork of both large integrated federations and smaller, more independent nation-states. The future is ultimately shaped not by maps and borders, but by the actions of people. It's up to us, the citizens of this planet, to decide what kind of world we want to create. What's your vision for the future? So, as we've seen, the future of countries and therefore the world map is far from certain. It's a tapestry woven from threads of history, politics, culture, and even the environment. And while it's tempting to try and predict exactly what that map will look like in 50 or 100 years, the reality is that it's a constantly evolving picture. What do you think the world map will look like in the future? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos exploring the big questions about our world. Until next time, stay curious.